Hey guys! Today we will look at a few ways we can chain sequences and build more complex and longer sequences with the help of sequential switches. And actually this patch will also be published in issue 78 of SynthMag magazine, so if you're interested there will be a link in the description. And here we already have the SEC3 from VCV, and it has 3 8-step sequences programmed. Now let's add a voice, and I will use energy from the geodesics collection, which will look like this. And I will want also to quantize this signal or the sequences, and we will use quantum from ML. Let's set a scale. I will use C, E flat, F, G, and B flat. Now the SEC3 will output voltage in the range of 0 to positive 10 volts, and I want to use this for pitch information, so this means that we get 10 octaves, and this is way too much. So let's use also a VCA, so we can attenuate this signal, and I will use the one from VCV. And let's close it to about, let's say, 15%, something like this. Now we will drive the sequencer with a multiplied clock, every clock multiplied by 4. Let's also connect the reset, and let's send the first row to the VCA, and from there to quantum, and from there to energy. And let's have a listen to the first row, how it will sound like. I have also some reverb here. Very nice. So this is the first sequence. Let's have a listen to the second one, to the second row. And to the third one. Very nice. Now I want to chain those sequences and create, instead of an 8-step sequence, I want to create a 32-step sequence. So let's use the sequential switch. I will use the one from VCV that has 4 inputs and only 1 output, so we can send sequentially 4 sources to 1 destination. So let's send the first row to the first input, and then the second row to the second input, and then again the first row will go to the third input, and then the last row will go to the last input. We will send this from the sequential switch to the VCA, and we will need something also to clock the sequential switch. And because we have a clock multiplied by 4, this is what we are using to drive the sequencer, and we have 8 steps all in all. The clock will have to play twice in order to play 8 steps, again because it's multiplied by 4, so we will have to use a clock divided by 2. So the switch will move to the next sequence after 8 steps, after playing twice. So what we get is a 32-step sequence. So let's use a divided by 2 clock to run the sequential switch, and use also the reset, of course, and let's reset also everything. And let's have a listen to this. I will send this to the mixer, and you can see here how it moves between the sequences. And we have a 32-step sequence built out of 3 8-step sequences, or 3 different sequences. Very nice. Now let's change the sound of energy a bit, change its settings. And if you want to know more about energy, there will be a link in the description to a video I made all about it. So let's first change the routings, and also change the Planck mode, so we can tune the different oscillators, both oscillators by fifth and octaves. And let's change this down, and let's change this up. Oh yeah. Very nice. Now what we can also do, let's use another VCA and open it all the way, and now use the sequences after the switch but before the VCA, the first VCA we used. So we have again the full range of the sequences, And now use this signal to modulate the FM amount of one of the oscillators of energy with the momentum input. And now we can modulate the VCA, for example, and by that change the modulation depth. So let's use a slow LFO to do this for us, and I will use the 8FO from Borg Audio, which is an LFO, I will show you this also on the scope, that has 8 different phases or outputs for different phases. So we have the same LFO but delayed from one another, or each output is delayed from the previous output. So we will use this to modulate the VCA, and what we will need a unipolar signal. So I will push the offset all the way up, so it will start from 0 and go up to 10 volts. And let's turn slow mode on, so we have a slow LFO, and use one output to modulate the VCA, but slowly. And this will modulate the FM depth. Oh yeah. Very nice. Now we have also on energy, we have the multiply input, which is a sort of a VCA with a slew, so with a bit longer attack and decay. So we can use gates also to modulate the level of energy, and I will use the gate output of the sequencer. Oh yeah. Very nice. Okay, so we already have one voice, but this was quite simple because we had 8-step sequences, or 3 8-step sequences, but the fun really starts when using sequences with different length. So let's use, for example, 4 ADDR sequencers. Again, Borg Audio 1, 2, 3, 4. In the right click menu we can change the range of each of them. So let's choose for the first one negative positive 1 volt, so we have 2 octaves. For the second one we will go with 0 to positive 3 volts. The third one will be again negative positive 1 volt, and the last one will be 0 to positive 1, so we have only 1 octave. Now let's randomize them. I just hold Ctrl and hit R, and I can just randomize the sequencers. And let's do something like this. The first sequencer will have 5 steps. The second sequencer will have 7 steps. The third one will have 6 steps. And the last one will have only 3 steps. And let's drive them with the same multiplied clock. And now if I hold Ctrl and I drag the cable, I can just take another cable from the same source. And we will use also the reset to reset everything. Very nice. Let's use another sequential switch. Again, the one from VCV. Send the sequencers to the switch. Just like this. And let's use the same divided by 2 clock that we are using for the first sequential switch, and also the reset, and reset everything. Very nice. And now I will want to quantize also this signal. So let's utilize polyphony. So we can use polyphonic cables. So let's do something like this. First of all, we will have to merge the monophonic signals into a polyphonic signal. So let's merge first of all what's coming out of the first sequential switch and VCA, and this will go to quantum, which is polyphonic. And again, if you want to know more about polyphony, there will be also a link to a video I made about it, so you can check it out. And then I will take another signal, the second signal, to the second channel, and already you can see we have thicker cables, which means we have polyphony. So we have through this cable here, we have 2 channels Now I will want to split those channels into, again, monophonic signals, so I can use with monophonic modules. So let's start with the pitch, and I will also want to split the gates later on. And now, instead of using multiple quantum modules, I'm just using one, and I'm merging and splitting the signals, which is quite handy, and it saves also CPU, which is always important. Okay, so now we have this. Let's add another voice, and I will use the FM operator again, Bog Audio. Let's use the quantized signal that's coming out of channel 2. This is the channel we have for the second sequence. Let's also use the gates, the respective gates, again, channel 2 that are coming out of quantum. Activate the level envelope. Change the envelope. Let's take sustain all the way down and attack almost all the way down. Very nice. So now let's see how this will sound like. Let's send this to the mixer. Have another channel. Solo it. Oh yeah. So we have again a 32-step sequence. But because we have less step on each sequence, some of the steps will play twice, and it will start always from a different step. So we have the same feel, the same repetition, but it's still changing and it's still very organic. And let's do something like this. Let's add another FM operator and use the same pitch information. Again, I'm holding control and I'm taking the same cable or another cable from the same source. Let's deactivate the level envelope so we don't need to use any gate, and send it to modulate the frequency of the voice FM operator. So it will modulate its frequency, it will FM it, as you might say. Okay, now let's change the ratio to 2:1. I just right click the frequency knob and I hit 2. So now this FM operator, the first FM operator, is 1 octave higher than the other one. And let's start opening the FM depth. Oh yeah. Maybe also the feedback. And now we can use the again the 8FO. We have more outputs here to modulate the depth and the feedback amount. So we have some movement going on. Listen to everything together. Oh yeah. Very cool. Now we don't have to use this only for pitch information. We can also do this with gates and triggers and rhythms. So let's use the trigger sequencer from Count Modular, the 8-step trigger sequencer. Let's leave the first sequence with 8 steps, but change the second one to have only 5, then again 8, and then the last one will have only 7 steps. And we have for each channel, we have 2 outputs. We have A and B, so let's change the triggers to come out either from A or from B. So here we have 8, let's go 1, skip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 and 8. Here we have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we have again 8, 1, 2, 3. Something like this. And here we have 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So we have 8 different sequences, and we will use another sequential switch, but this time from ML, which has really 8 inputs instead of only 4 like the one from VCV. Let's send all the sequences to it. I will just mix them randomly, something like this. Very nice. And now we will drive the sequencer with the same multiplied clock, the multiplied by 4 clock, and again use also the reset. And let's use also the reset for the switch. And now we will drive the switch, this time with the clock divided by 3 and not by 2, just for fun, and see what happens. And let's reset everything. Very nice. And now for our voice we will use 2 basal oscillators from Volt, 1 and 2, and also 2 VCAs, so I will just duplicate the ones I have here again from VCV. And let's use also 2 ADSR modules, or envelope generators, take the attack all the way down, sustain all the way down. Let's send the oscillators to the VCAs and the envelope will modulate. Let's do something like this. The envelopes will modulate the VCA. And let's use the signal from the sequential switch to trigger the envelopes. And let's have actually the second envelope will have a bit of a longer decay and release. I'm going to make a bass sound, and I want the second one to be a sort of a sub bass, and I want it to last also longer. And let's have a listen to this. So this will be the normal bass, this will be the sub one, so let's take it an octave lower. Oh yeah. And you can see its envelope is lasting longer than the first one. Let's solo this so you can listen to the rhythms. Oh yeah. Let's change their sound also. I will modulate their sound, modulation inputs with again the 8FO, just so there is a bit more movement. Oh yeah. Oh man. Okay, now just for fun, let's add also Tremor 2 from Volt. Let's use the main clock to trigger the bass drum section, and let's have a listen to this. Oh yeah. And we will use the multiplied clock to trigger the noise section. So we have some hi-hats. Okay, let's sidechain this hi-hat also with the kick drum. So what we will need, let's see this also on the scope. We have an envelope output from the kick drum section, from the bass drum section, which will output the level of the kick drum. So we can use this to sidechain the noise section or the hi-hat. And what we will need to invert this signal. So let's use the same signal and look at it on the scope. So I will invert this signal, but now we need it to start from 0 and then go up, and this will control the level of the hi-hat. So let's push it with the offset all the way up, and now we have exactly the inverted envelope. And we will use this through the modulation router or matrix to modulate the level of the hi-hat. Maybe also the decay time of the noise section, the same signal. Oh yes. We can also modulate the panning of the hi-hat with sample and hold. I will use the one from Bog Audio. And in the right click menu we can choose again the range. So let's go with let's say negative positive 1 volt, so it's not going hard left and hard right. Trigger it with the same multiplied by 4 clock and modulate the panning of the hi-hat. You can see this here also, the movement. Very nice. So you see, we can have some interesting sequences with chaining them. And of course, if you have a sequential switch in your system and a few sequences, you can also do this in hardware. It will work exactly the same. Like always, there will be a link in the description to this patch. Feel free to download it and take a closer look. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. If you enjoy what I do, consider becoming a Patreon. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe and hit the bell. And have a good one.